Hello my friends, welcome back to another tutorial. I hope you're all keeping very well and enjoying your painting and creating beautiful artworks. This week I'm going to paint, it's actually a commission which a lady asked me to paint. So I thought, why not use it for a tutorial? It's a lovely lake with a fisherman, focusing primarily on trees. Lots of different coloured trees, different shades. So creating a bit of depth possibly, and some nice simple reflections. I have a photograph on my phone here. I'll show you what she wants me to paint. So something like that, okay? And you can see lovely soft blues in the background, up there in those trees, mauves, purples, that kind of thing. Nice bright greens as well. So she asks me to paint something like that. So I'm going to paint that for you today. I hope you don't mind. Let's have a bit of fun with this one. Nice. I keep it simple, and let's see what we can create. Lovely painting. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Right, so let's do this. Let's have a bit of fun with this. I have a 16 by 12 canvas. I have a quick sketch here, just a very rough outline of my trees. You see these? Just a very quick rough outline. That's all I need. I'll tell you what colours I'm using today. Titanium white, Naples yellow, magenta, cadmium yellow pale, burnt sienna, lamp black, burnt umber and phaylo blue. I think that should do us. I think that's enough, isn't it? That should get us a nice range of colours. So let's start. There's a reference photograph. Beautiful colours in this. I'm going to start with just blocking in all these colours, okay? Let's just cover the canvas, all these trees. Let's just cover the whiteness of the canvas. I'm dampening my brush, and I'm going to go for a nice purple up here, a nice soft purple. Let's take some phaylo blue and some magenta. Now I didn't wet the canvas or anything, it's a dry canvas, okay? I just primed it once, but it's a lovely dry canvas because we have little areas. We don't need to wet this because it becomes very slippery if we're only doing small areas. So we don't need to wet this. I would only wet the canvas if I'm doing a very large sky or something like that, okay? Now we just get these little, it's summertime here, so we've lots of little tiny flies kind of darting around the place in the studio. Okay, let's just get a nice soft purple here, nice and soft. I don't want to go too rich with this. I've magenta, phaylo blue, and I'm going to take a hint of sienna into that, just to tone it down ever so slightly. Let's have a look at that now. All right, that's fine. That will do me. I want to just cover wherever my distant trees are with this colour, okay? Just there, across there. I'll be very loose with this now, nice and loose. Okay, just like that. This is a big green one, we don't need to worry about that at all. I'm then going to take some sienna with a touch of magenta, and I'm going to pop a little bit of that in, here and there as well. Just add a bit of colour, alright? Don't be shy, just grab some colour and go for it. Now I'll clean that brush just very quickly, dry the brush on some tissue and go into a darker shade for this. So let's get some phaylo blue, again, some magenta and a little black. And I'm going to put that colour now, slightly kind of on the pink side. I'm going to put that colour just down along the bottom and soften it up. Now I do also want to add a nice bit of blue into this because that will really push all of these off into the distance, okay? So let's, I'm not being too concerned about where I put the paint and all of that, because this is all going to be softened in later, okay? Let's get some black and magenta. And I want to pop a little black and magenta because you see this green tree we have here. I want to create a nice contrast. So I want to put a nice dark in front of that green tree, okay? And that will really stand out later on. Now, a lot of people ask me about painting trees. What I do to create texture is, you see this kind of a brush here, okay? It's just a normal, flat, synthetic, soft brush. But when it's used for a while, you can see the way it just opens up very slightly. This is perfect for trees. And what I do is I just generally dab in very random order. Just dab, 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 dab. That just gives you a beautiful illusion of foliage off in the distance. And what's happening is I'm picking up the lights and the darks and transferring them around on the canvas. And you can see then how that it gives a beautiful feeling of foliage off in the distance. Just be very rough with all of this now. Don't be too concerned about getting it looking actually like leaves and stuff like that. This is just a very loose impression we want off in the distance. Now I think that's absolutely fine. I don't need to do any more with that. I will use that same colour for this dark area of this tree in here. So let's just get a little bit of that purple. So like a purpley grey, isn't it? And pop that in there. Take a bit more blue, magenta. Pop that in there. I'm staying away from the outer edge where the green is, okay? I want to leave that for later. I could go maybe a tiny bit, look, just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to go into, now this is all mixed with the same brush, okay? I'm going to pick up some burnt umber and magenta. And I'm going to soften that colour then just in here where it's nice and dark, you see that? The trick with painting, I think the trick with painting is seen like this with lots of different trees, is to put a nice dark in where you have a nice bright. Do you understand? So for instance, if I go just put a nice black in here, get a bit of black, put a bit of black in there. When I paint my greens, my bright greens later, you'll have a lovely contrast, won't you? It'll be very nice. And again, just dab your brush very randomly around like this to create little suggestions of the foliage. That's all. Dab, 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 dab. I'm twisting my brush as I go like this, you see? See what I'm doing there? Just twisting the brush. So it's an impression of distant foliage, but it's not showing you actual leaves, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to just clean this brush. I'll dip it in some turpentine, straight onto my tissue, once or twice, and just leave the tissue soak the paint off. Do not swirl your brush around in turpentine because you'll ruin your turpentine immediately. I dip it in once, onto my tissue, give it a good rub, and it's pretty clean. I'm going to now go into some nice kind of mauvey greens. So what you want to do for mauvey green is I take some magenta, a little phaylo blue, and a touch of cadmium yellow. So what's happening is the pink is still giving you a bit of distance, whereas the yellow is giving you a hint of a green as well. Okay, a little bit more yellow perhaps, touch of blue. So the pinkiness in this is still giving you that distant sort of soft kind of a colour, okay? Now I'll start with this like here, okay? You see where I'm just kind of dabbing this in, and I know it's kind of mixing in slightly, but that's okay, I don't mind, that's what I want. Just go up here then. These are all my kind of initial beginning layers, let's say. Now I'm going to take some phaylo blue and a little white into that mix. That will give me a nice soft, cool green for up there. Now, the thing about painting like this, when you're painting wet on wet, it can be difficult to get strong colours on a tree like this, okay? What I would do is maybe get a slightly smaller brush like this. Let me just, I'm looking around now for brushes that I can use for this to show you how I create these types of trees. I'm just looking around and I think something like this. It's only just starting to open up slightly. You could use a fan brush as well. A fan brush would be absolutely fine for this. So I'll just dampen this very quickly and dry it. I'm going to now go for a very bright colour. I'm going to take some white, some phaylo blue, and some cadmium yellow. So it's a very whitey, minty, almost like a minty green. Does that make sense? With that thick colour on my brush, I'm going to go around the edges and just, with the edge of my brush, bring it in like this, look. Now you can kind of add little bits as you're going. Maybe take another bit of cadmium yellow there. And just create little bunches of foliage coming out. The trick with this then is to soften them back into the lighter colour. Okay, a bit more yellow on this now. You see how I'm just kind of letting some dabs of colour hit the canvas and then bring them back in. Okay, and creating different layers. So I come in then another bit and I add more. You can see how I'm starting to create different layers of foliage. So I'll try that again. I'm going to go up here. Just add little hints of light hitting some of the tree, just here and there. Okay, I'm going to try that again. Some phaylo blue, cadmium yellow, little white, and you could add a touch of magenta as well, just to have a different type of a colour. Come down here and just pop some of that in and let it disappear into the brown dark colour. Just blend it in with your brush. Just let the paint disappear and, you know, fade away into the darker shades. I'm not going to go too far with this now, just a little hint here and there, okay? And there we go. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that tree. I'm going to go up and with a touch of cadmium yellow on my brush, I'm going to just go up and just dab a little cadmium yellow here and there up on top of that, just as if it's kind of coming down and catching some light. Look, you don't have to be absolutely perfect with all this. Again, the focus of this painting will be on the fisherman really, and the bright kind of yellow trees. That's where I would focus my attention. I'm going to go to this tree here. I'm going to take some burnt umber and cadmium yellow and a touch of black. I'm going for a very kind of a, you see that kind of a browny green. It's kind of an, almost like an olive green type of a colour. I'm going to put that in there. And this is like a weeping willow type of a tree, isn't it? Let me take a touch of blue perhaps. Let's just make it a touch more, a tad more greeny. Weeping willows, they can be tricky trees to paint. A lot of people avoid them. I like the challenge of them, to be quite honest. I like the challenge of painting a weeping willow type of a tree. It's just something different to try. Now, just popping some of this black in here, look. And I'm going up and down with the side of my brush. Okay, like this. Just to start that weeping willow. Then, what I like to do for the weeping willows is, normally I'd start with a fan brush. I'd try a fan brush to see what kind of effect I can get. But you can use many different types of brushes. Flat brushes, you can use a palette knife and just dab it on edge like that. I think I'll try a fan brush first. With a dry fan brush, I'm going to take some cadmium yellow pale and some white. Don't want to go too bright with this now, okay? And a touch of sienna perhaps. Now, that's not bad. I think we should try that. Load up the fan brush, look, nice and full. And let's just go like this. Let's try it and see. Come on, let's just go for it. I'm going to start turning it as it gets to the top. Okay? Just on edge. Go like this. Now, I will add some white and a touch of blue as well, just to get some real bright ones up on top up there. And this is just an impression off in the distance. You see what I mean? It's just a very loose impression of a weeping willow type of a tree. Now I'll also take some black with my clean fan brush and some yellow and a little hint of blue as well. And I'll do the very same in some of the darker areas, just to accentuate the impression of them going up and down. Do you know what I mean? Maybe a bit of burnt umber. And that's fine. I think that's okay for what we need. It's just an impression off in the distance. Now we have this kind of a tree here. It's a mix between normal foliage and another bit of a weeping willow coming down, isn't it? So I go back to my bigger brush for this and do some filling in on that one. Also, what I did notice is I want to put a little touch of pink in there. I see a touch of pink with Naples yellow kind of in there somewhere. It's like little tiny bits, maybe they're flowers or something like that. But I just think a little hint of it here and there would just add another little colour to look at when you're looking at the painting. Okay, just a touch, a tiny touch, you see that? Now let's mix a nice warm colour for this as well. The same again, I'm thinking lamp black, cadmium yellow, touch of burnt umber. I think that warm olive greeny kind of a hue would work well in this. Maybe a touch of burnt sienna. And I always tend to fill in my trees like this first, just with a very rough, loose colour and a very thin, watery colour. I like to just fill it in like this. Very rough, very loose. Come on, let's just be very loose with all of this. Okay, there we go, filled in. Then once I get that kind of base colour on, I start adding colours to it. So for instance, okay, let's get a touch of blue with the brown and just go in here, just add a little bit of that. I could take a touch of black, add a little black just in the middle in here where it's dark. And what I tend to do with these types of subjects, I fill in the colours where I see. So if I see a dark shade, right, I'm going to, so you see in the middle here we have a dark shade. I fill that in with a dark colour, black, blue, brown, something like that. Fill it in, okay. We've another bit of a dark up here where the willow kind of falls down. So I'll just go a little bit of dark up there. All right. Now I clean my brush, then I just start adding little hints of colour. So I'm going to try magenta with Naples yellow, and I'm going to pop a little bit of that in here and there, just down here. I'll be very rough, you see what I mean? It's just to add a little hint of colour, just to have something different in there. A bit of burnt sienna. Okay. You see, it's very rough. It's not, I'm not painting actual leaves and rocks and all that kind of thing. The last thing then will be that weeping willow effect again. Firstly, I'm going to go out here with a big normal tree. So I could use a palette knife, a fan brush. I could try this big brush as well if I want. We have a huge range of choices to get those types of leaves. Just kind of basic, bright leaves. I think I'll try this brush, and if it doesn't work out, look, we can try something else. Let's take some white with a little black in there and some of that cadmium yellow. It's a very bright colour, isn't it? And you know what? I think I'll go with the palette knife. Let's try a palette knife. Get some more cadmium yellow on my palette. And another thing I want to do is just soften with my soft brush, just blend that back in there slightly, okay? I have tiny little flies everywhere. It's ridiculous, isn't it? They're all out with the heat. I'm going to get this kind of a knife. I'm going to white in to some cadmium yellow and a little bit of white. So I want this now to really, really stand out. So let's load up our palette knives and let's just go like this. Look. Give it lots of little flicks. Now, when it comes to down here, you see the way they tend to kind of fall down. Let's just do that with the knife. I'm just trying this now to see what happens, that's all. Because you can be pleasantly surprised. I mean, that's absolutely fine if you wanted to paint a weeping willow like that as well. Absolutely fine. Now, more cadmium yellow on its own. In fact, I could try the hint of phaylo blue. Maybe just to make that slightly on the green side, perhaps. So, a nice bright green. And just very gently, with the tip of your palette knife really, I'm just kind of flicking it here and there. I just want to get that nice contrast, you see what I mean? Against the dark background. And up here then it just kind of really fills in, doesn't it? Up high. And as I said, you know, there's no kind of particular technique to doing this for me. I'm just grabbing my palette knife and just trying and seeing what happens really. Now I'm going for more of a bit of a bluey green, just in as it comes into the shadows. When I paint like this with a palette knife, I'm pretty much thinking about just having fun as I'm doing it, just, you know, learning, that kind of thing. That would be my focus. Now I'm going to just kind of leave that dissipate down there slightly, right? I'll just leave it disappear in there slightly. I'm going to soften it in there first, like that, and then I'm going to try these nice kind of willow ones coming down here. I'm just kind of dabbing with the edge of my knife. That's all I'm doing. Dab, 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 dab. Up and down, up and down. And let me just move the camera ever so slightly there. Okay. I hope you can see that okay. I'll come right down there with these, look, right down. Dab, dab, dab. And I'm going to go with a slightly darker colour just up in here. I'm softening them just down in the dark areas, you see what I mean? Just so you don't have a sudden dark and a sudden light. They're kind of gradually softening in as they go. Does that make sense? Okay, let me go down here, add a bit of colour down at the bottom. Again, cadmium yellow and a touch of white perhaps. I already kind of have a little bit of green now on my palette here that I'm mixing that into, okay? It's not pure cadmium yellow. There's like, let's take even a touch of phaylo blue there again. Just a touch, right? And let's just kind of make it slightly kind of on the green side like that. You see what I mean? Now, you can just go along and dab like that. Very loose and very rough. Create the impression that there's just kind of more bits of foliage down here, popping up here and there. The palette knife is great for this because it gives you that very random feel. You see what I mean? I think that's quite nice. I like it. It's simple. It's impressionistic. And I love that about the palette knife. It just really kind of... Now, I want to get some white. Pop some white in here as if the sun is just really catching certain areas. Just a few random kind of areas. A bit of white in with the greeny and the yellows. Just as if it's really capturing the sunlight in spots. And I could do the same up here as well. And I could even do the same just down around here as well, look. As if it's just... sun is poking up and just catching some of these. And how is that so far? I don't think that's too bad. There we go. So we have a nice kind of a mixture of a tree here, don't we? Now we could kind of soften some of this back in slightly with the knife, look. Very gently dabbing, creating some nice foliage again, but softening it backwards into the tree ever so slightly. I think that's a very successful tree. I really do. I might add a bit of that just up here, because I really like the effect it gave. Just to really make these ones up here, maybe just stand out that little bit more, okay? Just one or two, don't have to go crazy. Now already we have our trees finished, isn't that quite nice? All we have to do from here on is our water. Let's start filling in our water and let's see how we go. So for the reflections, I'm going to just take my big brush again. I'm going to start with the greens, I think, on this side. So let me just dampen my brush ever so slightly. Go into some yellow. I have a yellow with a tiny bit of magenta in there, okay? I'll take a tiny touch of black. The reason I use black and yellow is because black and yellow give you a beautiful earthy green, a warm, kind of a summery earthy green. If you use blue with yellow, it gives you a very kind of a cool, bright, rich, cold kind of a green. But black and yellow, surprisingly, a lot of people don't use this mix. Black and yellow make a beautiful olive, kind of a dark olive green. You see what I mean? Look, it's a very warm kind of a green. So I'm going to go along first, along the bank here, just cut up into that with that nice olive green. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to pull that down. Pull that right down, all that green there. Again, I start with a kind of a medium shade of a green, like this. Then I put my lights and darks through this green, okay? Let's take some more black. And a little touch of burnt umber, perhaps, with some yellow. Nice thick paint. I'm going to just put that dark in here and I'm going to pull those down. Just pull down all the way. So you're getting different sort of strides. You see that? Different strides just like that. And clean that brush very quickly. Then I'll go into my cadmium yellow. Even on its own, we could try some on its own. And pull some of that cadmium yellow down like that. Okay. You could try a hint of Naples just to brighten it slightly. That works, doesn't it? And over here. Now you would get away with that absolutely fine. I'm just going to take cadmium yellow with some white. Just for some real bright strides of colour popping through this. And lastly but not least, a little, do you see that pinky colour? Let me get some magenta on my palette. And let's just pop a little touch of a magenta through this as well. Magenta with Naples yellow, I think, is a nice little combination. We'll just pop little tiny touches of that through here, like that. Okay? Now that's absolutely fine. As a simple reflection just like that, you can leave that as it is, it's fine. I now just take my soft blender brush and just pull those down straight, very gently, just mixing them together slightly, and then go across very lightly. Okay, that just gives you a lovely impression of a little reflection. It really does, doesn't it? Next I'm going to go and do this one here. So reflecting that one, we have a deep purple again, don't we? Like a grey purple. Let's try some phaylo blue, some magenta, and a touch of lamp black. Now I will also add a touch of white into this. Let me just try this. That's a little bit on the blue side. I think a bit more magenta. And a touch of burnt sienna just to warm it ever so slightly. It's more of a pinky grey. There. Ah, that's nice. Now I'm going to leave, you see that whitey area? I'm just going to leave that, a little bit of white in there as well. I'll go up into it as well slightly, look. And just go along, pull that down. Just covering the white of the canvas, that's all I'm focusing on right now. Just getting that white covered. bring it down like that. And I can go a little bit darker, maybe some burnt umber and a touch of black. Just up high, okay? Just where they meet. Pull that down as well. It's about, for me, it's about creating a gradient. So you can put just a flat mauve on there, but I think by adding that little bit of dark just in where they meet, it just seems to kind of bring it to life for some reason. Do you see what I mean? Just adding a little dark down across there and then just flicking it downwards and softening it in. It just adds a little something to it, I think, doesn't it? That's just my opinion. That's just the way I like to do it. You see, I think it adds something. Once we put our white reflections over this, it's really going to pop. I could just maybe take a bit of that colour and just pop it in there as well. Look. Just because. Why not? Come on. Just because. And that's fine. Let's clean our brushes again. We don't have much showing on this one up here, do we? And we don't have much showing on this one either, but I will put a little bit of it in. I think it deserves a little bit of it. I think we should. Let's just do it a little justice. Let's pop a little bit of it in. Grab a bit of yellow. Just a hint, because we will go over a lot of this anyway. Doesn't really matter too much. All right. So we have a lot of these base colours kind of in. Next we need to put in this lovely bright white, bits of blue, all that kind of thing. So I'm just going to turn my tissue around because it's quite dirty and give this brush a good clean. Okay, I'll dip it into my turpentine a few times and dry it on my tissue. Now, let's go with this. Let's try some phaylo blue and lots of white. And I'm also going to put into this a touch of magenta as well. So I'm going for a whitey bluey with a hint of a pinky kind of a colour. Does that make sense? I do want some thinners in this as well, just a little. So it's a whitey blue with a hint of a pink going through it. Let's try this. Okay, I'll go with that. I'm happy with that. I'm just going to go along. Don't worry if you kind of pick up some of the greens and stuff like that. That's absolutely fine. You don't need to worry about that at all. And let's just keep going like this all the way down. Again, I need to add plenty of thinners into this, just to make it, you know, move nice and freely. I don't want to be trying to drag paint across the canvas too much. Okay, there we go. Then a little more pink. I'm going to go in here like this. Around like that. And then I'm going to go like this, put that down there. And you see the way I'm just softening this up and down, softening them together. That's all you need to do, just like that. Even with the one up on the top there, okay, you could just put a little bit of that grey mauve shade. You could put a little bit of that down as well if you want. All right. Now what I am going to do is soften those two together just by gently tapping my brush here and there. I want to just merge them together like that. Just take the edge off of them, that's all. Okay, I'll go into some white and I'm going to pull some white across this as well. Just here and there, look. I want to just soften that green back into the water, ever so slightly. Now I'll take a soft blender brush and I'm just going to pull pull those down. I just want to soften them together slightly, because this is where all the fun begins, with our palette knife and all that kind of stuff. I get my flat palette knife, and I am just going to first, let's go with some of the whitey blue, okay? Let's take a touch of blue and some white and a touch of magenta. I'm going to just mix that, just mix it around very, very loosely. Now I do need plenty of white in this, okay? It needs to be a very whitey, pinkish sort of a colour, but there's a hint of blue in this still. Now, take a little roll of that on the tip of the palette knife, and let's just go like this. This needs to be nice and horizontal now, okay? Maybe the tiniest touch of phthalo blue. And it's quite simply wiggling the brush like this all the way down. And I'm almost kind of just scraping the paint onto the canvas. All right. You see, I'm just kind of putting tiny amounts of it onto the canvas, scraping it across. And I'm going to cut across this reflection here now. The idea is to just create lots of these little reflections coming across. That's the idea. That's, you know, sometimes it doesn't work very well, other times it does. But let's just see, can we create this effect? So you see what I mean? All this light cutting across that reflection. And we're also creating movement at the same time. You see, we're creating lovely movement in the water. Now I will take a touch of phthalo blue with white. I'm going to go for a more whitey blue this time. And I'm going to come up here and put that whitey blue just in around over here. And just keep using the edge of your knife up here, okay? Going left to right, left to right. That's very important. Now next I'm going to just go for some white on its own, I think. Let's just try a bit of white. And give this a real sparkle. I'm just kind of hitting and missing on the canvas, you see. It's just, I'm allowing the knife to kind of touch the canvas here and there. Does that make sense? Look, all the way around. So I pretty much went over a lot of the canvas. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of that dark colour. You see that dark shade that we mixed earlier? I'm going to take a bit of that and maybe just add a little bit of that here and there as well. So I'm going kind of in and out between the reflections with this darker shade as well. And I also do the same with the green. So if I take a bit of yellow and just kind of bring a yellow across here and there, creating movement in the reflection, that's all. As I said earlier, you know, a lot of this is trial and error. Sometimes I could make a mess of it, you know, I really could. Sometimes it might work out, but you never know until you try. That's the point about all of this. Now I do think I need to just darken here slightly. I think it needs to be just that little bit darker, don't you? It seems to be almost just kind of getting lost. Just take a little bit of blue and a bit of pink, maybe a bit of black, and just kind of darken that ever so slightly just along there. Okay, that will do fine. Now my friends, when I'm finished doing these kind of reflections and stuff like that, I like to rub my soft blender brush across them very lightly, just to take the edge off of some of those knife marks. So I'll start with the lighter colours, right? And I just pull very gently, as if I'm holding a feather. And I just allow the brush to very gently soften some of those out. Okay? I think it looks more like water when you soften them very gently away. And there we go. I think that's pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with that. I could spend loads of time doing this now. I could be taking my time. I could, really take my time on this, but I don't feel the need to. I like just creating a nice simple impression. That for me sometimes is more than enough. A nice simple impression. I'm just going to go down here and just add a little bit more in here, just to lose that just a little bit more, okay? Just a touch, only a touch. And up here, I think I need to just add a bit of that green as well. There, just to kind of sit that down, possibly even a little bit of white just in along there, okay? There we go. And already we are on to this lovely grassy area. I'll do the grassy area and I'll do the fisherman in part 2, I think, because I don't want to be making this too long. I don't want you getting bored, especially. So I'm just going to finish the grass. That could be a painting in itself, couldn't it? So let's get some cadmium yellow, little black. Yeah, let's try it. Cadmium yellow, a bit of black. Just fill this in. I generally tend to make it slightly darker as well. When I do a grass area like this, I generally like to go nice and dark with the colour, alright? Just to give me a nice base to put my lights on. And we can use a fan brush for this. A fan brush will do absolutely fine. I start with some of the darks, okay? Let's get some black, phthalo blue, and some cadmium yellow. And see these nice dark areas we have down here? Let's just flick it up, look. Another one here, just by the seat. Comes across like that, don't it? And I'll grab some more cadmium yellow pale. By the way, I'm using cadmium yellow pale hue, all right? That's the important name. Regular cadmium yellow pale is slightly darker, but the hue is a bit brighter, a bit more vibrant. Now I'm just going into that cadmium yellow with the same brush. I'm just going to add some flicks of colour here and there. Just cadmium yellow, no thinners, anything like that. No thinners. Soften them together then, look. Just very, very lightly, soften them together. Let's go over here again, more cadmium yellow. So we have a nice bright against the dark. Then I'll take cadmium yellow with some white. For over here, you see? So that stands out then against the reflection. And I'm just trying to be kind of random with this, really. Very random. Little bit of bluey green in by the shadows. And then after I clean my brush, I'll just go back into my cadmium yellow with a little Naples yellow. And just for those final highlights, just want to kind of go very sort of random with just one or two here and there. I'm trying to brush up on edge. It's just about creating a bit of texture. That's all I want to do. I just want to get some texture. And lastly, again, just some black. And I'll go nice and dark in some of these areas here, okay? And my friends, you could call that a finished painting quite easily, couldn't you? I think you could. I'll stop at that. I won't overdo this. And I'll call this part 1 finished. The primary painting is finished. Look, if you wanted to add extra little bits to this, by all means you could. For example, if you just want to add something to it, take a bit of cadmium yellow, put a couple of dots of cadmium yellow around here and there, look. Just create some little flowers. You know, why not? It's our painting, we can do what we like. We'll take some white as well. Have a little white here and there. It just adds that extra bit of interest. You could even go with some sienna. You see what I mean? It's just to add a little something to the area. And I'm calling that part 1 finished, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed it. I really do. Let me just move this up here so you can see me. There we go. Part 1 finished. Thank you so much for joining me. That's even in itself a beautiful painting. I will paint the fisherman sitting down in part 2 and maybe bring 1 or 2 bits of foliage just over, down in front of the corner of the canvas, okay? Close up. Just to make a kind of a canopy perhaps, something like that. We'll see in part 2. So thank you for joining me. I enjoyed that. Very nice. You can see how I just kind of kept it loose. I didn't go into too much detail. I like painting something like this every now and again. Just something loose and free, just having a bit of fun with your brushes and your palette knives. It's very refreshing. So I hope you've liked it. I hope you've enjoyed watching. I hope you've learned something from this tutorial. Thank you so much, my friends. I'll see you in part 2. I'll be right back.